This is a picture of the Tegalalang Rice Terrace, a place in Bali. It is a good example of two industries working in tandem, agriculture and tourism. Rice terraces are a very important part of the Balinese culture, and the cooperative water management system that regulates them has remained almost unchanged since the 9th century. It is known as the Subak system. The Subak system of democratic and egalitarian farming practices has enabled the Balinese to become the most prolific rice growers in the Indonesian archipelago. The boundaries of Bali's 9 kabupaten, or districts, are drawn up based on it, and it is the foundation of Balinese society. Rice is seen as a gift of God, and the Subak system is part of temple culture. Water from springs and canals flow through the temples and out onto the rice paddy fields. Water temples are the focus of a cooperative management of water resource by a group of subaks. Since the 11th century, the water temple networks have managed the ecology of rice terraces at the scale of whole watersheds. They provide a unique response to the challenge of supporting a dense population on a rugged volcanic island. The overall Subak system exemplifies the Balinese philosophical principle of Tri Hita Karana that draws together the realms of the spirit, the human, and nature. By listening to me today, I hope to broaden your knowledge about Bali and Bali's particular collectivistic culture. My knowledge of Bali, coupled with an interview I have conducted with a Balinese high priest, will help achieve this goal. I grew up in Bali and lived there for 18 years. High priests are as well informed as anyone regarding Balinese subjects. And I am at a unique position of being a native Balinese, Indonesian, and English speaker, which gives me a good position for translating concepts to a Western audience. I would like to share with you the culture of my upbringing Bali and what makes it unique. First, I will cover the geography and the basic history of Bali. Second, I will cover the cultural practices endemic to Bali. Finally, I will provide some tips and recommendations that travelers should consider if they take a trip to Bali. Bali is a province within the country of Indonesia. It is one of 34 provinces in the country. Each province has a distinct set of customs and traditions. Provinces located in the west of the country are mainly Muslim, and provinces located in the east of the country are mainly Christian. Bali is the lone majority Hindu province in the country. Indonesia's areas used to be either Buddhist or Hindu until waves of both Christian and Muslim missionaries came in and converted the areas. Many of the people who did not want to be converted from Hinduism left whatever area they lived in and resettled in Bali, leaving behind a Hindu enclave and a religiously evolving archipelago. Over 300 different native languages are spoken in Indonesia. While Bahasa Indonesia is spoken as the mother tongue of only about 7% of the total population, it is the national language and is used by 200 million people as their second language. For example, Bali has the regional language Balinese, but as Indonesian citizens, Balinese people generally also speak Bahasa Indonesia, which is their national language. Oftentimes, there are many dialects within each regional language. For example, in Bali, there are 6 different dialects. When I go to Buleleng, which is up in here, this area, I often need to switch to Bahasa Indonesia because their dialect is too strong for me to understand. Within each province, there are smaller subdivisions known as kabupaten, or regencies. These regencies often have their own set of customs and traditions even more distinct than on the provincial level. In Bali, the boundaries of these different regencies, over here, were drawn based on the 9 different watersheds and the feudal lords who controlled them. A good example of some of the differences in the regencies is the way they visualize barongs. Barongs are panther-like creatures in Balinese mythology that are the spiritual guardians of temples. Throughout Bali, there are 8 different types of barongs. The differences are due to whatever occasion they are involved in or the region they are located. Bali and its neighboring islands are fairly mountainous and hilly. The Indonesian archipelago is part of the Ring of Fire and has more than 120 volcanoes, more than any other country in the world, 20 of which are considered to be most active. And one of those 20 Mount Agung, is located in Bali. Because of Bali's hilly landscapes, there are many canyons and springs tucked away in between those hills. Many of the big rivers in Bali are fed by those springs. A big part of the Subak system is the efficient tapping of those springs. Bali, like any other part of the Ring of Fire, is prone to volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Mount Agung, Bali's most active volcano, last erupted in May 2019, an event that heavily affected its tourist industry but did not hurt anyone directly. The last eruption to take place in Bali of serious consequence to people's lives was in 1963. The Bali myna is the Balinese provincial animal. The Bali myna is critically endangered, and habitat loss and the pet trade are thought to have been the biggest players of the species' demise. The Bali myna is now restricted to the West Bali National Park. The Balinese tiger is extinct now. The species was hunted to extinction, and the last known sighting of one was in 1937. The species was the smallest species of tiger in the world. Now that I have gone over a little bit of Bali's geography, I will move on to Bali's culture. Bali's form of Hinduism is very different to India's form of Hinduism. Bali, too, has its caste system, but it is far more relaxed than India's. The difference in wealth between the castes is not as stark. Bali has 4 castes with no subcastes, and India has 5 with many subcastes. The Balinese people have their caste inscribed in their name, so it is generally considered to be polite to ask someone's name before speaking to them, so you can know their caste. People of the Sudra caste, or Jaba in Balinese caste, are named numerically in sequence of birth. Wayan or Putu for firstborn, Kade or Made for secondborn, etc. That's going to be this caste right here. Bali's form of Hinduism is far more monotheistic than India's. The Balinese generally acknowledge many of the Indian gods, but more as manifestations of the greater god Sang Yang Widi. Bali's form of Hinduism is closer to what India's was 1,000 years ago. Being located on an island, the Balinese culture/religion was isolated and never evolved the way India's has. Bali has many ceremonies and rituals that are numerous and unique. During the Balinese New Year, or Nyepi, there are 2 days that are observed: Ngrupukan, or New Year's Eve, and Nyepi, which is New Year's Day. During Ngrupukan, people go out, celebrate, and often make ogo-ogos. These are ogo-ogos. Ogo-ogos are giant monsters. Village communities, or banjars, create often months ahead of time to carry out and display on Ngrupukan. They then burn them before the night is over. The idea is that evil spirits will be attracted to the ogo-ogos because of their similarities and join them to be consumed by fire. During Nyepi, people are expected to stay inside their homes and not start any fires. Nyepi is the day God granted to the spirits, and people are expected to not draw any attention to themselves. Now that I have covered a basic level of Bali's cultural realities, I'll move on to things to do in Bali. Bali's activities and places can be branched into 2 categories: beach or non-beach. Bali has both black and white sand beaches. In the west of Bali, there are 2 beaches that stand out for 2 different reasons. Pemutaran is a diver or snorkeler's paradise. With beautiful reefs and calm waters, it has the combination best suited. Not the best spot for surfers for obvious reasons. Lovina is a great spot to go swim with dolphins. Lovina is a pretty well-established tourist town, so amenities might be a little bit more accessible when staying here. The east of Bali has 2 of the most complete towns on the island. If a person wanted to take a vacation on a beach and get away from society but still have access to a supermarket, then these places would be worth considering. Padang Bai is a port town in the Karangasem district. It has many beaches that are bordered and isolated by land extensions. Oftentimes, because of the large number of beaches in Padang Bai area, people can expect to have a beach all to themselves. The town of Padang Bai itself is coupled with many restaurants, hotels, and other services. Candidasa is a seaside town that was originally thought to be likely to grow in tourists far more than it ultimately did. Because of periods of economic hardship in the area, many of the locals turned to using explosives for fishing, ultimately destroying a lot of the reefs and making it even harder to attract more tourists. But the mentioned reasons, competition between resorts, and the lack of a big name makes Candidasa the best value for money place to go in Bali. The beaches in the south of Bali are a crowded waste of time. To go exploring the waterfalls, temples, etc. within the interior of Bali, there are two towns best equipped for a person to base themselves. Ubud is pretty much in the geographic center of the island. It is often seen as the cultural hub of Bali and is my hometown. Many dances, sarong printing, and other Bali-centric tourist things are based there. Because of many of the rivers that flow through the area, there are many canyons and waterfalls around it. Outside of the south of Bali, Ubud has the biggest expat community in Bali. Badugul is a mountainside town in the north-central region of Bali. It has a much colder climate than most of Bali, and the town is famous for its lakes and botanical garden. Badugul's botanical garden, Kebun Raya Eka Karya, is the largest botanical garden in Indonesia and houses 21,000 specimens of 2,400 species native to Indonesia. Sorry about that. Jatilui rice terraces are also not far from Badugul. They are a part of the first watersheds in the Subak system and are an Instagrammer's hotspot. Today we have learned a little bit about Bali. First, we looked at Bali's physical and social geography. Second, we looked at some of Bali's cultural practices. And finally, we looked at some of the places to go in Bali. Remember the Subak system and how it ties back to the concept of Trihita Karana, a harmonious relationship between people and their environment through the active engagement of people with ritual concepts that emphasize dependence on the life-sustaining forces of the natural world. I hope my speech will have increased my audience's knowledge of Bali.